things, and like takes a page to describe like all of that.
It's the difference. I've always said, I worked with a director one time who I said, okay, what's going on in this scene? And fortunately, this person is no longer working in the industry. He went back to advertising. But he said, I don't know, I've watched this series yet.
Yeah.
And he was 2 weeks in. Now, Matt, you'll deliver a line, and he'll say, no, I need to do this way, and it will feel completely wrong. And as an actor, I'm like, okay, that feels weird, because I know it does, but in episode 13, this line is going to come back to haunt you, and unless it's said exactly this way, it's not going to end. It's like, oh, okay, well, then
you got to do your research. Like, a lot of times we'll work on series, if we're lucky, that are long series that are ongoing. Yeah, and as the director, you need to see everything you can. I remember getting into it with somebody when I was directing, the hell was that show? Magical Do-Re-Mi, which was a show that 4 kids did. And it's a cute little girly show, but there were like a little over 200 episodes of it, okay? And I'm like, and we had the first 2 seasons or something like that, but I'm like, well, where's the rest of this? Because like, I want to, I need to know what's going on, because there were certain things with some of the characters. I'm like, this person's got something to hide. I know this person's got something to hide. I need to know what it is. Oh, why do you need to know what it is? Just directly the damn thing. That's why. Because if this, especially, this actor needs to know everything that this character knows, and that it will very much influence the performance, And Utana, Revolutionary Girl Utana, maybe you see that? That was a show, and that was a little before my time, but that was something where there's, I think it's like 39 episodes of Utana. It's basically like 3 major story arcs. And they did the first one, and then it sort of disappeared into licensing hell for years, and then they did the second and third. And when they did the first one, clearly they did not look ahead down the road, and unfortunately, I think some of the decisions that were made in the first 13 episodes weren't the greatest when you saw where it ended up going, and then they had to kind of make these midstream alterations, which were awkward at first, and then settled in. I mean, Utana overall is a very good show. It's a very good dub, but it would have been better if people had done the research. And
the other thing is, if you do your research, then you can choose to say, okay, you know what, this is the way it was done, but I think it's going to be more impactful to an audience if we do it this way. But you have to make a decision like that from an informed place. You can't just, we're going to do it this way because I want to. That's not the job of being. I've always said that being an ADR writer or ADR director or writer is, we are in some degrees creators, but more importantly, we're caretakers of someone else's creation. And you've got a job to look at what their intent was and what they wanted done, and to honor that first and foremost. You've got to. Right there.
Two-part question. First is, you must have had some time in which you started at the voice and all of a sudden said, it's not working, you're fired. The other one is that, what's it like working with a major star who's somebody that's very famous?
I've not worked with anybody.
Well, I mean, I've worked with the wrestlers, and they're, in their own sense, they're stars. I've directed SmackDown vs. Raw for the last 7 years. So, I've directed John Cena, Big Show, them. 99% of the time, the big stars are great. I directed Jeff Foxworthy in Are You Smarter Than the Fifth Grader at the Game? And he couldn't have been more gracious, couldn't have been more charming, couldn't have been more professional. I was afraid that, I would give him a direction and he'd go, yeah, fine. But no, he took every direction I gave him. They're 99% of the time, they're stars for a reason. They're stars because they're really, really good. And most of the time, they just need a little bit of guidance and, again, information. You know the project. You just need to bring them up to speed, and then you wind them up and let them go. And most of them that I've worked with, I haven't worked with any tough ones. Samuel L. Jackson, I got a story of Samuel L. Jackson. They're doing Samurai.
Afro Samurai.
Right. And he would do a take, and the engineer would say, "Oh, I got a noise on that. I need another one." And he'd go, "No." Yeah. That one was fine. We're going with that. So every once in a while, you'll run into that. But
I've had varying experiences with some people. Like in New York City, we have all like the Law and Order talent pool who's there all the time, and it's a rough shooting schedule for them. They're on call when they're in a shooting cycle. They're on call 24/7 because they shoot in all sorts of odd locations at odd times. So that makes them edgy sometimes, and they might get a call at any moment that says, "Hey." That says, like, "Come on, we gotta go, we have this location, you gotta move. It's 3:30 in the morning on Saturday, get out of your bed and go." But I worked with Chris Maloney. Anybody know who Christopher Maloney is? He's Law and Order SVU. And we actually did a National Lampoon comedy.
I know who that is.
And it was, and we're doing ADR, so we're replacing dialogue in the movie because, for whatever reason, because there was noise on the tape or because they were just rewriting stuff. And when he first gets in the booth, man, he's wearing like this purple tracksuit head to toe and all these gold chains. I mean, he was definitely like just goomba'd out. And he gets in there, and of course, his tracksuit's like making all this noise. And I could tell he was just like feeling kind of edgy and stuff because I think he wanted to be going to do something with his family, but he had to do this. And so he gets in the booth, and he also had directed this movie. So with that, I didn't really want to step on his toes because he is the director. But still, you want to make suggestions because, I feel like, our job is I'm going to help you get the best performance you can. So he gets in there, and the other thing is we're trying to sync with the picture. And when you're syncing with live action, you need to be right on for that to work. And he's in there, and he's just sort of, throwing out the line. And he just kind of keeps saying it. And I'm like, trying to tell him, and suddenly he stops. He's like, What?
Oh my God.
And I'm like, okay, listen. I'm like, I think this, if you just do this, I think it might work better. And he's like, okay, fine. And he's doing it, whatever. So, and he was just not in a good mood. And later on, I found that him and the producer guy who was sitting in the room with me hated each other. So then we had another actor come in who is someone who's like a voiceover pro, somebody I worked with a lot, and she comes in, and we just locked right in because I work with her all the time. And she's laying down this stuff, and he's like, oh, I get it. Oh, this is great. Oh, I get it. Oh, awesome. Okay. And he's like suddenly like, I'm like, yeah, asshole. But I worked with some other people, except for the most part, and I'm not saying that he was a bad guy. I think he was just, he was in a bad place. He sort of brought that in with him. But then he chilled out, and this girl went in there and made him laugh, and then he was great. But like I worked with Vincent D'Onofrio on something, and he was another guy, and there were like other actors who were new, and he like took time to work with them, and he was really great, and he's huge. It was that I've heard. But he was such a sweet guy. And Andrew McCarthy, I worked on for something, and that guy, he was just like a pro. Came in there, and I'm not saying that he wasn't fun or anything, but I mean he came in and he was just on the mark. I mean, this guy laid down ADR matching picture, just perfect. And funny, it was him and Jonathan Silverman, who was the pairing from Weekend at Bernie's. And Silverman was one of those, he just couldn't stop cracking jokes. But they were really funny jokes, so it was okay. But a lot of people who have success in any business get success because they're not jerks, right? That people do want to work with them. And they're professionals, I mean, even though Chris Maloney was a little edgy and that day, there's no way it was the first time you've done ADR, because when you're in a weekly TV series, every episode you're going to have to replace something.
We've got a new person to introduce himself.
Yes, Michael Cinder Nicholas, ladies and gentlemen. There it goes. Hello, my name is Michael Cinder Nicholas. I'm on your director's panel today to aid your cues. I own NYV Post for Bi-Coastal Studio, and I've directed for original animation and for ADR and some celebrity and some better than celebrity, and that's that. And
and actually this week I'm directing Cat in Paris, which was one of the Oscar-nominated Best Features of the year.
Sweet.
With some undisclosed Hollywood talent,
Wow.
so I can't disclose.
I hope they don't do that.
Nice.
So we got a hand up over there.